off. Welcome everybody to Contemplating Pop Culture Pokemon. This is a rebranding of our pop culture and theology. We renamed it Contemplating Pop Culture, and our first of the year is about Pokemon, and we will talk a little bit about why we chose that here in a little bit. So these are opportunities for us to dive into pop culture phenomenons, to look for some deeper ideas, some deeper themes, things that we could maybe learn about, things that are unique to that pop culture phenomenon, that something that we could learn from. And so it's just a chance for us to develop these skills of engaging popular culture and learning to look for interesting information from it, and to use pop culture to help us grow as individuals. And so I'm really excited for our first session. We do have a couple of ground rules that are a little bit less needed in this setting, where it's a bit more of just kind of being nerds for an hour. But this is an educational space. Practice respect. This is a liberatory space. We don't debate issues of oppression. We'll center voices of marginalized communities as best as we're able, and keep discussion on topic. That being said, the structure is that our special guest, Anjum Chaudry, and I will be kind of just talking back and forth for a little bit, and then we will open up for questions and discussion time after we turn off the recording at the end. And so that is our general structure for the event. And so for anybody who may not know me, my name is Ember Kelly, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at the Fourth Universalist Society. I use she and her pronouns. And I have been playing Pokemon since I got my first Game Boy Color back in the day with Pokemon Red. It was the purple Game Boy Color that you could see through. I really miss that aesthetic of the 90s. It was a good time for technology when everything had the see-through, so you could see all of the parts inside. And I had the purple one because purple was always my favorite color. And I picked Red because Charizard seemed slightly cooler than Blastoise on the blue cartridge. And so I have been a Pokemon fan since the 90s. It has long been an obsession of mine, and currently in attendance at this event, if you're watching it later on YouTube or in podcast form, is my own son, who I'm also raising to be a giant Pokemon nerd, who regularly reads Pokemon books for fun. And so it is now a cross-generational nerdy effort for us to love Pokemon. And so, Anjum, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us all a little bit about your love of Pokemon, and also for maybe listeners later on in the video or podcast format, what is Pokemon if they don't know anything about Pokemon? If someone is a complete newbie, what is Pokemon?
Sure thing. Hi, my name is Anjum Chaudry, and I also had the purple see-through Game Boy Color, but I had Pokemon Blue, and I've been playing that since I think I was 4 years old. It taught me how to read, which has been a very helpful lifelong skill. And I started watching the anime as soon as it came out in America. So that was when I was 2 years old. So yeah, and then for what is Pokemon? Pokemon is the global phenomenon that has taken the world by storm since 1996. It is a very cross-media entertainment franchise with the games, the anime, the manga, obviously all the toys that we all have. So yeah, we thought that it was a great franchise to explore, since it's touched our world in so many ways. There are a lot of different avenues for us to talk about the big questions. So does that explain at all what Pokemon is?
I think so. It's a game about catching animals and sometimes being their friends and sometimes battling them. That's the other key things. But yes, there's TV shows, there's cards, there's stuffed animals that, we made sure to set up our Zoom calls tonight so that we were prepared with Pokemon in the frame. And, if you got your own Pokemon stuff at home, feel free to tell us about it in the comments or show us in your screens right now. We're always good for some extra Pokemon. I do not have any Pokemon tattoos, though I have thought about that one.
Uh-huh.
I have to I have a great love for Sandshrew, but we can talk about our favorite Pokemon as we kind of dive in. And one of the reasons that I thought it would be interesting to discuss like the religious, philosophical, kind of deeper ideas of Pokemon is that as a kid, I for a brief moment of time, my parents very quickly gave in after I got obsessed with the TV show and the video game, and then wanted all the cards. But at the school I went to, uh, Pokemon was like evil. You weren't supposed to um, interact with it because like the cards represented Satan. Like there was certain imagery like this. The thing on his head was the mark of the beast. I was from this very fundamentalist background, and so Pokemon in the beginning when it first was coming out, and especially in the '90s with like the Christian American culture being very white, had this kind of backlash of like this is a foreign, weird, not okay with Christianity sort of concept. But it did not stop most of the kids that I knew from playing it. Anjum, did you experience any of that world of the religious backlash against Pokemon at all?
That definitely missed me. I don't think that I interacted with anyone who wasn't either like a big fan of Pokemon or just like totally neutral towards Pokemon. Um, I grew up UU, so I
Fair.
remember my Pokemon toys to the UU church and playing with them during the times that it was okay to play. So that was my experience.
Perhaps we need to get some Pokemon card sets for playing at church. This is ideas for later. One of my proudest moments is that um, I graduated in 2006 to give everybody a frame of reference, and I got a Game Boy because it was still pretty easy to get like a Game Boy Color at that time. It was only like one generation old. The DS had just come out. Graduated high school in 2006 from the chats there, and so I got one of the Game Boys and I was playing Pokemon Red as was sitting up on the stadium or up on the podiums for graduation because they like had us all up on stage on like bleachers on the stage, and I just sat there playing Pokemon the entire time. So really really proud moments of my graduation. I turned up the volume a few times just to see if like the microphones would pick it up and play it throughout the whole auditorium. I don't think it did, but it earned me the reputation. And I also do regret um, selling for $75 at the time my first set of Pokemon cards. I wish I had them to give to Jude instead. It was maybe a bit of a mistake. I got $75 and my sister sold hers and got tickets to go see NSYNC play baseball, which was slightly more unique, I suppose. It was at least a unique experience. And so I gotta furnish my Pokemon cred because I don't have a T-shirt and quite as much Pokemon street cred as Anjum here. Um, when I thought of who to have do this conversation with me, I instantly knew that there was one person that knew Pokemon well that I had to have for this conversation. Um,
That's the reputation that I want.
It's a good reputation to have, I think.
Yeah.
So as we were preparing Anjum, we talked a little bit about like that Pokemon does have religious connections to like the world of Shintoism. It's something you've done maybe a little bit more digging into than I have. What have you learned about in terms of that like kind of connection?
Yeah. So Shintoism is one of the main religions in Japan, and it has a lot of relation that you can see to Pokemon. Whether it's intentional or not, we don't necessarily know. But Shintoism is a polytheistic religion that has a lot of ties to nature. And so Pokemon arguably can be seen as polytheistic in multiple ways. You have Pokemon that seem to have divine abilities, whether it be abilities of creation or, just the ability to like manipulate water and stuff like that. And there are lots of Pokemon that are based on spirits, some that are very similar to the kami, which are Shinto gods. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of ties there. We just, yeah, don't know how purposeful it is, but it's definitely interesting to look into.
Right. And I mean, so, that's kind of one of those things that where Shintoism is very ingrained in the culture. So Pokemon, whether they're maybe necessarily making these connections like on purpose, it's something that they're used to in terms of the general mythos that people understand, sort of like how most people in the United States are familiar with like different stories from Christianity because it's what they hear all the time. It's the Christmas holiday they celebrate, or things like that, even if they aren't necessarily Christian themselves. Like it's one of those things that it gets really into the like the cultural framework. And so I mean, like it seems like Pokemon definitely, while it's hugely popular in America, like it's popular worldwide, and it's huge in Japan. Like it's even equally, possibly more popular there, and it's I a bit of a cross cultural experience, I suppose.
Yeah, there are a
Sometimes.
lot of Pokemon that are inspired directly from Japanese culture, whether it be mythology, which you'll see in a lot of like the more spooky Pokemon, the ghost Pokemon, some of the dark type Pokemon are based on like mythological tricksters and spirits. Um, and then, of course, some are like native animals and the like. You can tell, like, if you research any Pokemon, you'll find like all the different ideas that went into the design, into the name. It's all very intentional. And not just Japanese culture, of course, because there are different regions that are for New York and New Jersey, and for Hawaii and Britain and France. So, yeah.
Which one is New Jersey?
Unova is New York and New Jersey because you
Oh
have
man,
like Manhattan and then like Brooklyn and New Jersey.
oh man, I'm gonna have to like go replay things with like this fresh new perspective.
Yeah,
Like,
you'll have to look at the
yeah,
map. I
oh man, is it like is the New Jersey half a desolate wasteland? I don't remember. Like,
don't
you
know.
know,
There is a desert in Unova, and I'm like, I haven't seen a desert around here, but there has to be a desert in every region, right? So,
right? Well, so they do try and give each region like a little bit of a different culture. Like Galar, the most recent one in Pokemon Sword and Shield, is like loosely British with maybe a little Scottish influence in there too, and like mainly that just means that like some of the Pokemon are now wearing top hats or um, look like knights, like Sirfetch'd, you know. Um, but so they do try and give like the different regions a little bit of like different culture and different um like different cultures, I guess would be the simplest way to say it. um and like you said, man, New Jersey in a Pokemon game, little did I know.
oh, how did it do
at
it? There
at the time I was playing those ones, I did not know much about New Jersey yet.
actually is also a region based like loosely on Arizona. It's the one that I believe is in
Hmm.
Pokemon Coliseum. That one is a desolate wasteland, like Arizona.
I mean, fair. Well, and you had the one that was based loosely off of France or Paris, like France, and that was XY, if I remember right, and
Yeah, that's
one that
Kalos.
was based off of Hawaii, with the one that I'm totally Moon and
Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon. Um, and yeah, I mean, so it's really interesting that they try and make this world very, very lived in. But like you said, it also has an afterlife. There's also a bit of a lore, existence of ghosts, of like spirity type Pokemon. Like, is there an afterlife in Pokemon, Anju? Like, what do we?
Yeah, some of the ghost Pokemon, if you look at like their Pokedex entries, they're particularly spooky for a children's game, I would say. Because some ghost Pokemon are said, according to the Pokedex, which I'm not quite sure is actually a reliable resource, but that's kind of another conversation. Um, some of these Pokemon are kind of reincarnated humans, even that then like turned into Pokemon in the afterlife. So that supposedly, according to the Pokedex, is a thing. Um, and there is a canonical spirit world to which ghost Pokemon can sort of travel between there and Earth at will, it seems. So yeah, lots of alternate dimensions and the like in Pokemon.
Right. Well, and you have like some that like, have like certain function. What is there's one that like, um, gosh, I have to have it right in front of me, but like that it did like had a certain like scaring function that like then it would like do something with the soul. And I mean, it's so weird to think that, like this idea that like some of them like how does like what is to take the killers instead of are we human or are we dancer? Are we human or are we Pokemon? Like if they can just become Pokemon after death, what is a Pokemon exactly?
That is a question that some people explore. There is a theory that humans are Pokemon as well, due to like, if you look at the anime, the ability that humans in that world have to like withstand electrocution and other various physical things that we certainly could never survive. So there's an idea that they, can't necessarily use attacks, but like have some of the same like defensive mechanisms as Pokemon. And then some humans do seem to have some ability. You have like the psychic class of trainer that seem to have like telekinetic abilities. So maybe we are. Who knows?
Humans are just the most populated Pokemon. That one I think seems practical for real life. Um, you are Pokemon. This is the lesson for tonight. So
Theory. I love the fan theories.
if we were in Pokemon, Anjum, would there be a Unitarian Universalist church for us to go to? Do you think does religion seem to exist in the Pokemon world? Like some worlds they like try and like kind of when they're creating these worlds they do like kind of write religion in there, sometimes more sloppy than others. But at least in my experience, like there's no specifically like it's not like anybody in any of the worlds has like gone to church.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have like the Lavender Town that's haunted and creepy,
Mm-hmm.
but in graveyards, but it doesn't seem like anybody's like going to church.
Yeah, I've never seen evidence of a contemporary church in the Pokemon games. I will say in the anime, there is Santa Claus. So, and he's a real person.
Is that a
So,
Pokemon?
everywhere. So, there
Well,
is
shrines.
that light hint. Shrines, they do have shrines. Like there's the Elix shrine in the Elix forest. That's like a shrine to Celebi, who is the voice of the forest. So yeah, that thing about spirits again. There's definitely that. But of course, when you think religion in Pokemon, for me at least, I think of Arceus or Arceus, as I believe it is canonically pronounced now. They've shifted that one, and I wasn't ready for it. um, who a lot of people see as like a god Pokemon, a like god of creation kind of Pokemon. Arceus is said to have like been born out of like an egg of nothingness and then created the Pokemon universe. If I remember my Arceus theology correctly. So you definitely have that side of like a somewhat like theoretical canonical creation myth, with other Pokemon who play into that. You have like Mesprit and Uxie and Azelf, who are like then deities of what is it, emotion and wisdom and emotion, wisdom, the one other one. But then you have Mew, who supposedly contains the genetic information for all Pokemon, and so is also seen as like possibly a more like scientific leading. like origin myth for
Hmm.
Pokemon. So there are these kind of theological arguments canonically that exist in the universe. That's what canonically means.
Right. No, I think that makes sense. Like, and yes, I mean, there's shrines, like, except instead of like to religious figures, it's to like religious reverence for some certain Pokemon. Like
Mhm.
in Sword and Shield is, the most recently one that I played. So it's like one that is my most recent frame of reference. And, they have their legendary Sword and Shield Pokemon that supposedly helped avert the darkest day from
Yes.
like destroying the whole world, um, and there's Eternatus who like was going to devour the entire world, and
Yeah.
um, so you also have like a couple of these ones that are very destructive Pokemon, or like in the originals, even before, like I don't think they were even necessarily in the original games, but in the original anime, you had like the legendary birds.
Yeah. In the
Um,
movie, you have the shrines to the three original birds, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and then Lugia, and you have this island that seems to have this whole like religious leaning festival towards these bird Pokemon and their powers, and like Lugia's overarching power to like quell them all, which ends up coming fully true with like the chosen one, Ash Ketchum being the chosen one in that movie. It's a very, very good movie. 10 out of 10 recommend.
Ash the Jesus figure. Is that what he's the yeah?
Is that what I was saying?
Well, if he's the chosen one, I'm thinking about how um, in the most recent one when he's near death and he hears Pikachu talking to him and in plain
Nice.
English in
And
the dub version at least.
mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah. So I mean, maybe Ash Ketchum is that's why he never like and maybe he's got some level of secret powers because he's never aged in all this time.
And
Um,
he's kind of overcome death multiple times. No spoilers for the movie that came out like 22 years ago, but in the first movie, obviously he turns to stone and then he comes back to life. I assume that stone was some kind of death. So
you would think,
you would,
or you even have in more recent Detective Pikachu #spoilers that the Pokemon and the humans merge, and that Mewtwo, the creation from Mew, does this to like save a human person from dying. So like he puts them in Pikachu's body, but like takes his memory and uh, check it out if you haven't seen Detective Pikachu. It's worth being a Pokemon nerd for.
well,
I would say.
Mewtwo also a very interesting topic because like if you look at religion through this lens of creation, and that like whatever makes Arceus or Mew godly is like their ability of creation. You have Pokemon who are canonically created by humans. Of course, Mewtwo is like the most obvious example, but you also have Type Null slash Savali or Savali, yeah.
We're
um,
all pronunciation goes for tonight. Where you leave something in the comments or in the chat if you hate our pronunciation. We'll
yeah,
we'll we'll try better next time. But yeah, so Mewtwo is genetically created by humans to be like the perfect Pokemon and to be able to supersede it. So you do have like this science, or you have Porygon, who like was
mm-hmm.
made for like being basically a computer Pokemon. So you
Yeah,
have like these religious ones, but you do also have like the science Pokemon in some sense as well.
yeah. And so it's like if humans can bestow life to these entirely new beings, what does that say then? I don't know. That might be above my pay grade.
That is for everybody to figure out. What does that mean? If what does creating a life, new forms of life, what would that mean? Um, yeah, well, so interestingly, with like this idea of like creating new Pokemon and stuff, as somebody who's played since the early generations, like that first one was you catch these things, you fight with them, you win. Like that was it. But in the more recent ones, it's like, oh, which ones are your friends? And like, who is it that you have special bonds with? And how do you care for them? Don't you want to go camping with them and feed them and pet them and play with them? And so there's been a bit of an evolution to, Pokemon evolution. So there's a whole, we didn't even put that one in our topics. It was talking about evolution and how they change.
Yeah.
But like this whole, there's been a huge change since like the first game. Like and even in the first like anime, there was like Pikachu that Ash was particularly close to, but that was like the exception of like everybody else, just their Pokemon was their thing they fought with. Like maybe they kind of liked them, but nobody was like friends with their Pokemon. And so that's like a little bit of a change. Like, what is the relationship besides whether humans are Pokemon? What is like, are they friends? Are they just fighting? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you can see that progression, especially in the games with like the rival characters, because like in Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, you have Blue Oak, or like the Gary kind of character, who definitely has like a bad attitude and supposedly, he's not as nice and perhaps doesn't have the bond to his Pokemon that you, as Red or whatever you named your character, I named him Ash because I've never been original in that way. And then in the more recent games, you have much more happy-go-lucky rival characters who are very supportive to like you and your journey as like you're very special because of your bond with Pokemon, is made very clear in the very simple narrative plots. So I think that could come from a lot of places. It could come from like backlash from people like, organizations that are against animal abuse who have taken umbrage with Pokemon as supposedly glorifying animal abuse, which is a whole argument that some people have taken the time to make. But I don't know. I think it's about like some of the different ethics that Pokemon wants to foster once it, companies have to take more responsibility for their users once they get to be a certain size. And so they want to be like this goodly product that parents want to buy for their kids because it has these positive influences. Besides just teaching them how to read, they want it to teach good ethics to their kids as well. So I think that kind-hearted nature, I feel like that's where it comes from.
And probably a good bit of it's also like the technological limitations. There's only so much they could do in terms of storytelling and dynamics in the early games, except they did have, the little like Pikachu pedometer that you could like get, and you could bring Pikachu with you everywhere you went.
That was like Gen 4.
Oh, come on. That was like the first generation. I remember.
In Pokemon Yellow, you have Pikachu follow behind you, but that extra little like pedometer thing, that was Gen 4. I guarantee it.
This is Mandela effect. We can have a whole separate conversation here that I remember this differently. But they had a little bit more leeway in their storytelling, that they can tell stories that are about friendship versus like, hey, we're just really trying to get people to try out this game. Like we want them to be able to fight the Pokemon. But like, and I mean, so now you have people who, there's a whole controversy when Pokemon Sword and Shield launched because they cut down, instead of having like 1,000 total Pokemon, they like cut it down, and people were angry because they wanted to keep trading their favorite Pokemon that they've had for game after game after game after game. They wanted to trade them up and keep them going. So, and to some extent, people have developed relationships in real life with these Pokemon. Like this is something that they have developed real, actual relationships with this technological character on their video game, that they say, this I want to keep. I first played with this character in a game 15 years ago, and I want to keep bringing him into all the new versions. And so people have developed relationships, or maybe they get stuffed animal versions of said Pokemon. Like humans in our world have formed these attachments to Pokemon, as well as I wonder if it's to some level that because we all in real life started like getting attached with like, oh, this is my favorite Pokemon. I want a stuffed animal of it. I want like to pretend it's my pet. That suddenly they're like, maybe we should do more than just have them kill each other.
Yeah, it's interesting when, what the fans want is, or what the fans expect is different from company goals. Because definitely you'll see that with like the company had specific reasons for wanting to like cut down on however many Pokemon were in the game. And it does make sense, but so many people now play Pokemon, out of nostalgia. Of course, they're always trying to prioritize the new generation that's coming in, because these are like new kids that are going to buy the new products and so on and so forth. And they've always been a reliable market, whereas, once people hit like age 12, they kind of start to like come and go. So like logically, I can understand that, how they're always trying to do different things. You can see that even in the older games. Just like to go into a little Pokemon history, if you don't mind.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so of course, with the original games, the Pokemon Company did not know how those were going to go. They had no idea how popular the games were going to be. And that was even into the creation of Gen 2 as well. Pokemon wasn't yet like the global phenomenon that like we know it is now, and like feel like it always has been. But then it was gaining popularity, and they wanted to put more effort into the Gen 3 games, into like telling the story that they thought had value, which is funny because I feel like we as consumers of Generation 3, which is the one with Team Aqua and Team Magma, don't give a lot of credit to those teams, because their arguments are like, we want to take over the world so we can make it all water, and we want to take over the world so we can make it all land. It's not a very logical argument, but that game was very intentionally created to talk about very real climate change implications that were happening at the time in Japan, and of course are ongoing. So like the Pokemon Company has all of these very intentional decisions that at times like go over the heads of the consumers, or like, yeah, we're taken over very emotionally by our nostalgia or our expectations, or, just wanting things to be like how they were in the previous games. So I don't know. I wasn't upset about the National Dex controversy, but I also have never transferred my Pokemon from game to game. I always like to start with new ones so that I can get to know the new ones, but every user experience is different, and that's like part of the magic of Pokemon. So
right. Yeah. Well, you talk about it being a global phenomenon. It just like, am I right in remembering that like it's like makes as much money like almost as like Disney? Like it makes like Pokemon is huge, like in terms of pop cultural like phenomenon, like across all of the like the video games, the TV shows, the movies, yeah, the toys, the cards. I believe
that, yeah, Pokemon is the biggest entertainment franchise. Like I believe it's number one, or at least it was a couple years ago. Everything I say should be fact checked because I'm not looking at any references, but yes, that is my belief. Top grossing media franchise. Thank you. Yeah. Number two is Hello Kitty.
Oh, man. Yeah, so it's huge, and like they have to deal with this pressure, which fans, and we'll get to that in just a second. There's a couple other specific things that I wanted to chat about like the Pokemon world, and like the theological implications of them, and then we can talk about like fandom and representation and all that good stuff. But so Pokemon, for those who are not super familiar, do have like types. So, Anjum was talking about that one team wanted fire and one team wanted water. And so when you start a game, you have a choice between a fire, a grass, and a water, and they all have strengths and weaknesses against each other. It's rock, paper, scissors. And it started out very simple. Like there was a couple, it was like, I can't remember how many it was in the first generation, 6, 9
No,
types.
like 12 or so.
Yeah.
Only 3 have been added.
Yeah. But it went from having 12 and there was only, you only have one type, but now there's like dual types. So you have Pokemon that are like electricity and fire, or like dragon and flying, or so are these like the question? A lot of human folks, a lot of conversation about humans and what it means to be human is like, are we born like innately better at certain things? Are we born with like certain things like in our brain that will like mature over time? So it's a similar idea there. Like, are these Pokemon like, are these innate characteristics about them? Are they like, is it percentage? Like, is it 50-50 split that like Dragonite is 50% flying and 50% dragon? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, so we've been fact checked. It was 15 original Pokemon types, and so now it's 18. Thank you very much for the fact check. Yeah, it's interesting to think about Pokemon as like this wild, sprawling universe that seems to have so many of its own mechanisms that are separate from our universe. Obviously, Pokemon's understanding of physics is very different from ours.
Electricity.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are different, but it's this very obviously human created universe. You can just see that in like all of that categorization, and how like comfortable that is for the human mind. It makes it very interesting to dig deeper and be like, oh, you such and such Pokemon, like Gyarados would make more sense as a water dragon type than as a water flying type, but yeah, it's like obviously intentionally created so that it's something that children can grasp. Which then, as we start to get older, you start to question all of these things and try to like remake the universe. Some of us might have Word documents that are actually a Word folder of multiple documents, trying to rework the Pokemon universe into something that makes sense. But then we realize that we know nothing about weather or ecology or geography, and then we run into kind of a roadblock. But that's purely hypothetical.
Well, I can say that one is not me, so I will leave the rest of you to deduce which of the two of us that might be. Well, I mean, but that's the thing is like as humans, we like easy categories, and like to some level, to loop it back into as we think about fans, is that it's made so that it's simple enough that like a kid can understand it, but you have people that really, really, really get into like they know every statistic, they know how to optimize every statistic, they have like strategies on how to do that, and they know which types have which weaknesses, and like it's this game that has like surprising amounts of depth for being something that technically is for kids, but that tons of adults are also playing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it speaks to the success of the franchise and the passion that especially like these older fans have behind it, that so many people now, YouTubers and Twitch streamers, have careers that are based on this thing that they didn't create, largely the games, doing competitive gaming, or walkthroughs, playthroughs. They seem to like really reliably get a lot of views. I've seen them even on charity streams, people doing challenges with Pokemon. I've definitely watched a 10-hour YouTube video that was one of those. So yeah, there's a lot for it to offer. You can, you have the types of people who, they play through the games, but then they spend like hours and hours and hours just hunting for shiny Pokemon, which are Pokemon in the games that are a different color than usual. And like, that's really the only different thing about them, but people are obsessed with it, and there are lots of videos of that as well. So yeah, that's leaning a little bit more into fandom as well.
Oh,
Which
so speaking of obsession, Anjum, who is your favorite Pokemon? If you had to
no,
pick one, I can tell you mine. Why you think?
yeah.
And that is Sandshrew. And that is because the very first episode I saw on TV of Pokemon was the episode where they introduced Sandshrew. Coincidentally, on a rewatch, he's like being abused by his trainer, and there's all sorts of interesting things there. That he's being overworked and like hit with a whip to be trained into being the strongest, and then his trainer realizes maybe he shouldn't be so mean to him. But either way, like I saw this design, I'm like, oh, what is this? Like this is something new, and Sandshrew has always stuck through as my favorite. I've not gotten a Sandshrew stuffed animal yet. Bulbasaur suffices for now. I definitely told Build-A-Bear that this was for my kid and not for me when I got it. But
Oh, I didn't lie about that. I have Pikachu and I have Eevee, and me and one of my friends from college just ran into the Build-A-Bear and we're like, we need it now. So,
well,
no
so who is your favorite? I've given you your requisite like 1 minute to decide
yeah,
your favorite Pokemon.
you know what? That 1 minute really on top of the like 23 years that I've had to think about it, it was not enough. No, I've
Okay,
never.
a top five.
Okay, I can say when I was young and there was only Gen 1, that my favorites were Vaporeon and Articuno because they were the prettiest. But now I've become a much more complex person. And so now you have like, I love Bulbasaur because of nostalgia, because he was my starter in Pokemon Blue. But like, I love such and such Pokemon because maybe I wrote a fan fiction that like highly featured such and such Pokemon. I don't know. So like, I don't know. I have kind of all of these categories: Pokemon that like interest me because of their lore, and Pokemon that I just like their design. Or like Mudsdale was the absolute king of my Pokemon Ultra Sun game. So like, I gotta give him some points. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you. Ponyta is my mom's favorite Pokemon, so I'll cop out and just go with my mom's there.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Well, so you mentioned fan fiction, and so we'll move into a rapid fire of a few fandom sort of discussions here, and then we'll open up for questions from everybody and just general discussion from anybody that's interested. And of course, for anyone listening later on YouTube or podcasts, like feel free to leave comments, and we'll keep an eye on the discussion. But so fan fiction, Anjum, what is it? Quick definition. What is fan fiction?
Oh, okay. Fan fiction is something that is written by people using an aspect of a fandom. Do I have to define fandom? Like a piece of media that already exists. So, for instance, you might write a Harry Potter fan fiction where you just use the characters of Harry Potter, but maybe they're in our universe, or maybe they're in their universe. Or you could write a story with any character that takes place in Hogwarts, and that's fan fiction as well. So, yeah,
Like
and
like a fan fiction of Harry Potter the Pokemon trainer. I'm sure it exists.
there are crossovers where you use multiple fandoms, multiple franchises, pieces of media. So yeah, and people just tend to post them online for free. It's not legal to make profit off of them. So it's just like a fun hobby that lots of people have.
Yeah. Well, and so Pokemon really lends itself into it in terms of that as a role-playing game and as a game where, like, yes, there's a story, but it's so much of it is about catching the Pokemon, about befriending the Pokemon, developing your team, having like your group that's going to lead you to be the champion. Like it's an ability to make stories in a fictional universe and to create meaning.
Yes. Yeah, in Pokemon, I mean, yeah, that's why it's like my favorite for fan fiction, is because the world is so vast. So many different things have been introduced in all of the different universes. in Pokemon, be it the manga or the anime or the games. And then lots of people write stories with their own original characters that are in the Pokemon universe. You can even write yourself to be in the Pokemon universe. And I think that that's very exciting for a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. Check out fan fiction if you haven't ever before.
Yeah, I have recommendations.
I don't have any Pokemon recommendations. I do have a Harry Potter recommendation, but I will not publicly endorse it on the church's video.
Us after.
Yes. And so another quick fire one here would be, we have the TV shows, and as we mentioned earlier, Ash is immortal and has never aged. He's still 11 all these years later. 10. Oh, okay, I thought it was, man. See, you just talked about Harry Potter, so I got 11 on my mind, and with going to Hogwarts. So
Red is, the game equivalent of Ash. He's 11, so it's okay.
Fair. Okay. So the idea of like continuity, we live in this world where Marvel has weaved together a gajillion movies and TV shows and is telling like this story that has continuous threads through everything. And then you have Pokemon where roughly sometimes there's connections.
Yes, actually. So Red is a good example of that. Yeah, I was just saying that he starts off at 11. Red and Blue, the characters from the first Red, Blue, and Yellow games, they do show up in then the second generation, which is Gold and Silver and Crystal, and then they show up much later as like seemingly adults in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And they're also in, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but that's because those are remakes of Gen 1. So there are some through lines there that I would probably say are like mostly fan service more than like trying to tell a cohesive story. Because you have that in the anime with Misty and Brock, who are Ash's original travel companions. They come back more frequently than other characters do because they're the nostalgic characters. They're the ones that have like supposedly, as the creators see it, the biggest fan base. So there are times that like fans seem to have some influence over these decisions that are made. I would argue, obviously, no one from the Pokemon Company has told me this, but certain things make sense.
So what you're saying is they've personally consulted you.
No, if they had, you would see very different things happening. I have ideas.
Let's see. I suppose a final thing before we open for discussion and we leave it for any comments on the video form and turn off the recording part is what kind of story is Pokemon telling? So, like with something like Star Wars, you have a very clear, like this whole idea of the hero's journey. What is the story of Pokemon? I'm curious your thoughts, and then I can maybe share a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, well, once again, we have many, many different stories in Pokemon. I think, yeah, Chosen One, you definitely see that many particular times, especially like in the movies with Ash. He's definitely called the Chosen One in the second movie. So I would say that, but it's like it's an adventure narrative, like Lord of the Rings. I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings. That's adventure, right?
Anjum, you have to go back and watch Lord of the Rings in theology now.
Oh, maybe later.
See, I was going to say, so my style of playing Pokemon is endlessly grinding so that by the time I go fight like a gym leader, I am like 12 levels higher than them and automatically get through in like 2 seconds. And it's no challenge at all because I've sat fighting the same battle over and over and over and over until all of my Pokemon have leveled up.
So you're
and
a very boring
It's a grind. It's a simulator
It's
of the
a
grind of
and
life under capitalism.
yeah.
It's a leveling up simulator. I'm telling you that you must level up. No, there's my hot take to end this for our video segment. And so,
Okay.
if you're watching this later on video or listening in podcast form, thank you for checking it out there. We're going to turn off the recording so that we can have some discussion where folks don't have to worry about being recorded. And so, thank you for listening in the later ways. And Zoom apparently thinks I'm about to raise my hand when I do this. Interesting factoids about Zoom. It has a sensor apparently now. But leave comments. We will watch the video and see if you want to tell us about your favorite Pokemon or about a meaning that you find in Pokemon.